Hi, my name is Liliana Gephardt. I'm doing a business plan presentation over a business I plan to open named One of a Kind Pottery. One of a Kind Pottery was not a new business actually. It was actually founded by my great grandfather and my great grandmother, Ronald and Verna Stanfield. They originally opened in 1983. The business started because my great grandfather wanted to retire and he started working for a company that used molds. He found he didn't like using molds and he wanted to actually get creative. So he started doing actual pottery with his actual hands, and he started naming it One of a Kind Pottery because each piece, no matter how similar they looked, were of course one of a kind. They ran the business, for around 21 years before only closing because my great grandfather died. I want to reopen the business because I've grown up using the pottery all my life. I grew up eating out of the bowls he made, and they are still in pristine condition despite all of this time that has passed. And so I want to reopen the business. I want to inherit everything that my great grandfather used to do. So let's get into the company description of the company. It is going to be a sole proprietorship of me, and the effective date of business we plan to open in February 1st next year, so about 2 months from now. Originally, the company was founded in June 1983 by my great grandfather. It closed in 2004 because he passed. It was 21 years of business, and it probably would have kept going if he continued living. The mission statement originally was to make practical stoneware that was useful, that was microwave and dishwasher safe, and I know because I put it in the microwave. And now we want to continue fulfill the exact same standards that they had before and create functional and beautiful stoneware. The location is at my grandmother's house, the daughter of my great grandparents. We will be in the detached garage, so not very far. We have a few development goals. There's not very many, and there's not going to be a lot of expenses because we're not like renting a place in town or anything. So our goals are to clear out the garage, to get all the equipment, renovate the garage, buy our first batch of materials, get started on crafting, and of course, open up the shop. After we advertise to the community. The analysis of the industry there's not really a lot to say. The industry isn't really growing or shrinking much, and it's projected that the next 9 years it's going to stay that way. It hasn't, yeah, you can imagine, considering that nowadays there's all these big machinery places that make it out of molds and things like that, mass produce them. And so right now it's more of an artistic industry, and so it's kind of smaller. There's most opportunities in the street are like self-made opportunities. There's of course shows that you can go to, and markets and things like that. But a lot of it is like connections, because an art industry is pretty much made up of connections. And while there are some people that are in it for the practicality of it, it's slowly lessening with time. Our target market is, like I said, art shows, trade shows, flea markets, and of course in our shop we're going to be selling products. We will also be having classes for different age groups. We'll have children's classes, young adult classes, and then everyone else. And we'll also have specialized classes for people who want for a particular purpose. The competition, there's really not a lot to say either. There are 3 main competitors that are all within an hour's drive. There's Alto Clay Works, Fish Tales and Pottery Pets, and SIU Craft Shop. Each of them have their advantages and their disadvantages. Alto Clay Works, for example, has a very long history, but their website isn't the best. Fish Tales and Pottery and Pets, they are very diversified. They have pets, of course. They have a party room, and then they have a DIY area for a lot of different things. I wouldn't really call them a pottery place, but they advertise that they have quite a bit of pottery. I think that their products are pre-made things that people can just paint and do what they wish with. And SIU Craft Shop has, of course, the strength that it's a university, so they have quite a bit of professionalism. But a disadvantage of that is that there's not going to be a lot of they're not going to have the market of kids, and they're not going to have the market of people that want to learn it for a hobby, and it's the academic environment kind of subdues the amount of people that want to do it academically. Potential future competitors, there's not really a lot there either, as you need to have quite a bit of education and experience to get into the industry. The biggest competitors would be shops similar to the Fishtails Pottery and Pets, because the fact that they just have let people do something artistic and then they're done. There's not a lot of people that want to actually get dedicated into taking a month-long class or something. So that'd probably be a biggest competitor if somebody opened a shop that did something like that, like a one-time class kind of thing. Barriers to entry, like I said, you need a lot of experience to do this. It's kind of dangerous when you in some circumstances, like if you get close to the kiln, if you don't know what you're doing, and there's of course cost. It's not really a lot, but it can be, depending on the person or the area. As for our market plan and strategy, we have a message we want to communicate, which, like every other business, is that we are hard workers. Everything is created by hand, and it goes through a month-long process for each piece. And so we are very dedicated hard workers, and we want to communicate that. And we also want to communicate our history, because this is an inherited store. This is an inherited shop, and it's very important to us. Our options for delivery and advertising and such is of course virtual, and then there's also physical methods. Our virtual methods are of course Facebook and an email system and a website, so that we can let people know and see and hear what we're doing and update regularly. We also want to have a YouTube channel so that we can do tutorials and show people what we do there, and because right now there's a lot of people out there searching the internet for things, and we want to be able to show them in a variety of areas. We also have physical methods, which are the more traditional, which is just handouts and business cards. We'll put them in places where our markets may be, like when we go to craft shows, or we'll put them in places where there's children, so we can, for classes like at schools. And of course, word of mouth. This is an art industry mostly, and in the art industry it's mostly about connections and word of mouth. Our sales procedures, there's not really a lot to say there. Of course, going to the art shows and flea markets and such, and then we'll also have an in-shop store so that people can buy products there in-shop at our facility. And so operations wise, we will be renovating our facility. Of course, like I said, it's a 2-car garage on my grandmother's property. It's pretty large, very large actually. It's one of those large 2-car garages. There's enough space to have our kiln, our crafting area, our drying area, a little office area, and also a place for a shop. And then we'll also have more than enough space still to have lessons. Our production plan, well, it's pottery. It's pretty straightforward, but it's a very long process. You need to craft it, of course, mold it, and then you also have to let it dry for a long period of time, which can be up to 2 to 3 weeks or more, depending on how large the product is. And then you have to put it in the fire and let it dry out well, and you have to let it dry, and then you have to glaze it. That makes it waterproof and dishwasher safe. And then you have to let it go back in the fire, and then you have to bring it out and cool it down, and then it's done. But the whole process takes at least a month. So, yeah. Suppliers, we were able to find a store called Ceramics Shop online. They sell everything that we would need, including equipment. So we'll be able to get kilns and wheels and compressors, and we'll be able to get all our glazes and our clay, and other tools there. And until we get better into the business and we find areas closer to us with better discount prices, that is where we will be going to. Technology wise, there's not going to be a lot of use other than the normal thing like cameras and computers and phones and such, so that we can keep in contact and stay modern. But actual equipment wise, there's not going to be a lot of use. We will have an electric kiln, but that's pretty much it. And we're going to try, we're not really going to use a lot of actual like technological equipment because it's all by hand, and we're going to try and keep it that way as it's the way my great grandfather did it. Management wise, there's of course employees. We will have one full-time worker, which is me, Lily Gephardt. I will be in charge of the operations and shipments and goals and such for the business. We'll have part-time workers as it's family started business, family owned business. Part-time workers will be family members of mine. They will be more like job kind of thing rather than actual by the hour, as they have their own things, but they still want to help. Compensation wise, I will be paid $16 an hour and $2 for every student. We can have up to there'll be up to at least 70 students or so, and so that's a lot of students, so $2 will accumulate for each class. Part-time workers will be paid on a job basis, like I said. Unless we get an actual part-time worker, then they will be paid minimum wage. And then long-term development goals, where it's not really a lot as we're just getting started, but we do have some goals, like hire another full-time worker to help split the work with me, help with actual crafting and giving classes and going to art shows and such. We also want to move facilities out of my grandmother's property and to town. And then of course have more classes, like I said. As for the bad things that could happen, there's not really a lot other than the typical issues that come with moving to a new location, such as the rent or the community not really accepting you, bad location, and things like that. As for our strategy to get to there, for all money that comes in that isn't going directly into expenses and materials and rent and such, 70% will be going into savings, and the other 30% will be going back into the business immediately for like repairs or unexpected costs or experimentations. And now our financial plan. Our counting system will be done via Excel spreadsheet, and it'll develop as we develop as well. This is a process, but we do have that prepared for us. As for startup expenses, we projected to be around $12,000, because we have to clean and renovate the garage. We need to get our equipment. We need to get our furniture and such. We have to get our first batch of supplies. And our yearly expenses are around $47,000. This is just, approximate, because we have my wage, we have our supplies and our glazes that we have to get regularly, we have transportation, and then we also have electric and water. Here we have a listing of our general categories of each of products. So we have like small products, larger products, kitchen square products, we have other large products, and we have like artistic products, which tend to be a lot more expensive, and then we have some faulty products that can be used but aren't really, they're faulty, so we have to put that in its own category, because some of them can be used, it's just not, can't sell them as if they're in perfect condition. So we have it here to show like if somebody bought one from each category at the lowest price, and then one from each category at the highest price. At the lowest price it'd be around $1,500, at the highest price around $3,015. Here we have other revenue sources. This is of course classes. We'll have 3 children's classes, 2 young adults, 2 other ages, and then classes available for other one-time kind of circumstances. And here we have each month we would get around $1,900. And so here's an important picture. This is the potter's mark of my great-grandfather. This is very important as it is the leading identifier in all pottery. Every stoneware has a potter's mark to identify who it was created by. And we of course will create one ourselves. We won't plagiarize my great-grandfather's. And that is the conclusion of my presentation. Thank you for listening.